Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast. The Outdoor Adventure Series celebrates individuals and families, businesses, and organizations that seek out and promote the exploration, stewardship, conservation, access, and enjoyment of the great outdoors. In this episode, we continue our celebration of the National Marine Sanctuaries, 50 years of ocean conservation and stewardship. Our guest today on the Outdoor Adventure Series is Grace Bottitta-Williamson. Grace is the National Recreation and Tourism Coordinator at NOAA's Office of National Marine Sanctuaries, our nation's system of underwater parks. Grace, it's a pleasure to have you on the Outdoor Adventure Series.
Thank you. It is a pleasure to be here.
Fantastic. Now, for our listeners, I had the pleasure to meet Grace virtually, though she didn't know I was there, when she spoke to a virtual meeting that we have with the Outdoor Writers Association of America. And Grace was on our virtual call and she was talking about the National Marine Sanctuaries. And I have to say, if I had not been on that call as well, we might not be chatting today, but I'm so glad stars aligned, so to speak. And here you are. So it's great to see you again.
You too. Thank you. And thank you so much for this opportunity. Really appreciate it.
Fantastic. Well, I'm enjoying it. You are guest number 4. We had the pleasure of first starting out with Michelle Johnston. We had Vernon Smith, your media coordinator. And our last episode we published was with your director, John Armour. So we appreciate him taking some time, which I'm sure is a very busy schedule, kind of like yours. All you folks that are at the main office in DC, so to speak, you got your work cut out for you, I'm sure.
I think our passion level matches our schedule or vice versa. I'm not sure which. So
one thing I do get is there's a lot of passion going around, and in this day and age, that's a good thing. And first, before we kind of dive into your role at the National Marine Sanctuaries, tell us a little bit about your background. 30,000 foot view, how'd you get here?
That's an interesting one. I thought for the longest time, this is before college, I was going to be a veterinarian. And then that kind of switched to whale biologist. And then I volunteered in a couple of places, including like a whale watching boat, and realized I get really seasick. So I switched from that to just more holistic type ecology type classes. Still kept volunteering and trying to take different jobs and figure out what I wanted to do and what I didn't want to do. My first job was with the National Park Service, working in New York City with beach nesting birds. And then I eventually moved on and started doing more marine mammal stuff, but it was more once they wash up on shore type things. So strandings and the like. Fast forward, always worked on the coast. I'm from New York, always worked on the coast, whether it's beaches, or then I became a biologist with Ducks Unlimited, working on saltmarsh restoration, waterfowl habitat, again, still coastal. And then did a bunch of things, including working in the Department of Defense in Africa, worked in Alaska for a bit on waterfowl projects, and then came back. And I've been working for NOAA's Office of National Marine Sanctuaries for, I think this is my 7th year.
Wow. You've had quite a few rodeos in your lifetime. I think it's funny to me. I'm from the Midwest, so my view of water, the coast, is pretty much been the Great Lakes. And I haven't spent that much time on them, which is, as I look back, I mean, it is what it is, but I wish I had spent more time and really thought about this ecosystem, the environment that's all around. But what I found interesting, what you just shared, is kind of get seasick out on the water. And you're a member of the Outdoor Writers Association of America. And we have a peer in the organization, Bridget Butler, who is she's the quote unquote, the bird diva. And she's up in Vermont. And she was sharing when she went to school, she went to get her degree in marine biology, and she discovered she gets seasick as well. So I don't know. I just thought that's kind of interesting. I wonder if she knows Bridget. Okay. All right.
I'm surprised I haven't though, but no, we haven't crossed paths yet.
So as the recreation and tourism coordinator, you have a scientific background. You've been out there working on restoration and habitat and with both marine mammals as well as waterfowl. And I get that, but what role does the National Recreation and Tourism Coordinator do at the National Marine Sanctuaries? Because I think it's a fascinating job because you probably get to go out and coordinate visits to all of these sites, I would
Yes.
imagine.
Well, I wish it was that. So
Okay.
if you remember Love Boat, Julie, the cruise director, that's not my job,
Okay.
unfortunately. It's more about connecting people to places. It's that
Okay.
interest of resource protection, wildlife, and engaging people. And that's really my jobs have been that, even in my research stages. It's always about what can we do collaboratively, working with different people. But the resource is the wildlife. The resource is the coral reefs,
Right.
but we need people to interact or engage with those resources so they understand them and appreciate them and
Mhm.
want for them to continue being there and being healthy. So largely big picture, right? For the sanctuary system, that's what I do, whether it's through partnerships or opportunities and some conversations definitely with the site level as well. But on a bigger picture, that's what we're trying to coordinate. Opportunities like sustainable tourism, working with communities together collaboratively to protect the resources of a national marine sanctuary, but providing opportunities,
Okay.
recreational fishing, surfing, diving, etc.
How do you begin to have that kind of a conversation? I mean, is it based on a need in a location? How does this conversation begin? How does it kind of expand and get actualized so that people get it, but they're still and they want to kind of come out and see it and participate.
There's a bunch of different ways. There's definitely no one path because we have 15 sites. We're a system, and our 15 national marine sanctuaries, and that's 15 national marine sanctuaries plus 2 marine national monuments. Each one was created for very different reasons.
Mm.
For definitely for ocean protection and conservation, but some have shipwrecks that
Right.
we talk about. Some of them were created for habitat, like humpback whale. Hawaiian Island humpback whale was created for humpback whale habitat. And so the sites have been around for a long time. And in a lot of cases, it's what are the needs of the site? What's the mission of the site?
Mhm.
And then, okay, what can we do there? So for me, I talk about to a lot of industry folks in the outdoor recreation industry or in the tourism industry,
Mhm.
the activities that happen in a national marine sanctuary have to be compatible to resource protection.
Okay.
So I generally talk about responsible recreation, meaning when someone's getting out on their kayak, we don't want them chasing after a sea lion. Like that's not responsible. That's not good for either the person or the wildlife. So we really talk about infuse messaging about how to recreate responsibly. There's certain gear or certain places we don't want boats to be anchoring. So we provide mooring buoys or we try to direct them to someplace else. That's that responsible recreation. We don't want anchors on top of the coral reef. So there's always that play of we want people out there, but we need to message and work with partners and the operators that are bringing people out onto the water so that we're doing this together to protect the resources, but we're still having fun.
So if I can kind of try to connect the dots,
Yeah. Thank you.
there is, and I'm a novice at this. That's the best part about being a podcaster and a coach as well, as I get to ask questions and try to connect,
Yeah, the basic questions are good, Howard. So thank you. Bring me back down.
connect those dots. But so I
Yes.
can see, for example, any one of the parks. You have you're meeting, having discussions locally with them. What's the mission here? What are we trying to preserve, protect, save, develop? And then there are the sports enthusiasts, whoever they might be, fishermen,
Mhm.
anglers, whale watchers, kayakers, etc. And so I could see
Mhm.
then you're having conversations perhaps with those industry groups, perhaps like in that area about what is the National Marine Sanctuary System? What is the sanctuary that's in your backyard or the ones that your members would be interested in? And here's how you interact with them. So is that how this kind of conversation plays out?
Yeah, it's really, and I think I started going down this path and then I got distracted, but it really happens in multiple ways. One,
Okay.
it definitely happens at the site level. So there's a lot of conversations at the site level that the site and staff are doing every day. They have advisory councils. They try to have relationships with the operators that bring people into the water. They
Okay.
do a lot of that. We have visitor centers at many of our sites to provide information to folks that are passing through or use the area on a regular basis. We rely on that. So there's those, that's what my hands are, right? That there's that solidified site conversation that they
Right.
do. They work in communities. How I complement that is that I work on a national level with a lot of national level industry groups
Okay.
or nonprofits and try to connect it from the top down, the down up
Okay.
with our advisory councils and some of the conversations. So because I'm in headquarters and so close to DC,
Right.
I can work with several folks on a national level to
Okay.
prep and provide more opportunities on a national level that will trickle down to the more relevant, pertinent conversation, like connecting an organization like Outdoor Afro, for instance.
Hmm.
I've been working with them nationally, but now I can help provide relationships and opportunities at the site level. And at the sites do the same thing. When something comes together, like we actually do a system-wide event called Get in Your Sanctuary that is all summer long this summer because it's
Okay.
our anniversary. But we provide recreational opportunities or tourism or stewardship opportunities. But that's what the sites do. But I help coordinate it at the headquarters level. So it's a really give and take
Okay.
of how we do it. We'll try
I
as holistically as possible.
Yeah, and I love the concept of the trickle down. Here's like one example when trickle down actually perhaps works very well.
It's intentional trickle down and it should be mutually beneficial. I mean,
Yeah.
we are part of a system.
Yeah.
But it's the activities at the site is why people get excited, right? They
Hmm.
want to get in the water. I can't do that. I'm in Silver Spring, Maryland, near DC. But I can help with the communications. I can help with the connection. I can hopefully find funding, etc. But it's the site that's pulling it together and working with the individual community groups and providing those opportunities for connection into the water.
Okay. If you're open to this, I'm curious. You've been with the sanctuary for 6, 7 years. How do you know what impact you've made because of these conversations? What is there an example like, wow, this just happened and something my team, the group, the department, we had a role in this. What would be an example of something like that?
Well, at that one I just mentioned, to Get in Your Sanctuary, we do this on an annual basis, but it's basically me creating the guidance and the opportunities and trying to find the funding to provide to the sites for opportunities that they do.
Mhm.
I mean, that's an example that we do every year, but really it's the relationships. It's connecting with, I mentioned Outdoor Afro, but we work with a lot of organizations, and most of them, I will tell you, really didn't understand what we do and how we do it, and that we even exist and that we provide opportunities for recreation and tourism until we started talking to them more proactively. There's an organization, and I'm not going to call them out, but when I first met them, they're like, "We have nothing to talk about." I'm like, "But you do ocean recreation." It's like, "We have nothing to talk about. You don't allow ocean recreation." I'm like, if I could have a relationship with my husband and we don't all agree, I know we have common ground to talk about it. And
Right.
since then, we have worked together quite a bit. We have a memorandum of understanding to work together, and we're not always going to agree. And that's really okay. But we definitely have that shared priority of ocean recreation, healthy oceans. So
Okay. You bring up a really good question is how do you begin to have conversations with these groups, organizations to help grow the message and, and evolve this message? Because and I'll be honest with you, before you spoke to the OWAA in our virtual meeting, I did not know the National Marine Sanctuaries existed. I live in Vegas, so I know there's some national parks in the area.
right.
I learned something new and it's like, oh wow. So what can be done to perhaps increase that message and making and helping to make more people aware that this marine system exists?
That's a big question.
I'm sorry.
And that's a lot of what I do, but it's a lot of what our communication team does constantly, trying to be relevant. And we
Right.
are relevant.
Yeah.
We've been around for 50 years. When you look at other agencies or other places, they've been around for almost 100 plus years. People live on land, right? We're in the water. And so trying to make connections, I try to say from the mountains to the ocean, following that watershed mentality of like, okay, there's lots of people that touch and are part of these conversations and they don't even realize it. So I try to initiate partnerships, strategic to some degree, but like, okay, there's organizations that are out there that like National Wildlife Federation that touches the entire nation. Working with organizations like that that are strictly ocean focused
Mhm.
really helps our message get across. Approaching Outdoor Writers Association of America, like knowing that even I didn't know what a National Marine Sanctuary was when I applied for it 7 years ago. I mean, we're fantastic places and people recreate them and many times don't even realize that they're in a national sanctuary. So it's working closer with the tourism agencies and the state outdoor recreation offices. And it's just, we're getting there. It takes a little bit more concerted time and energy to do so.
Okay. Okay.
And doing podcasts like that, like, right. So that's happy to do this and helping share the message. And
I love it.
again,
I love it. And you brought up for me, the magic word recreation. And I shared this with your director, John Armour. Outside of perhaps the Shed Aquarium in Chicago, where I was living the last half of my life
yes.
before I moved to Vegas, I've never seen a whale. Never.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my God. So how do you help prepare and expand this message that the sanctuaries are here
Mhm.
and you can have fun out there,
Yeah.
whether you are into looking at fish as a diver, angling to catch the fish, or surfing, or just whale watching. I mean, I want to talk
Walking
about
along the
birding, by the way,
shoreline. Yeah.
walking the shoreline. How do
Yep.
you share this message of fun and helping to prepare folks to go make a visit and have fun?
Yeah. Well, there's two. I mean, for me personally, there's two things that I've done that I think have helped us move the needle a little bit. Again, it's being part of conversations about outdoor recreation,
Mhm.
period, for me, not just ocean. So I am a very active member of the Recreate Responsibly Coalition that talks, and we came together 2 years ago specifically about creating messages of getting people outside at whatever skill level, whether you're on land, water, it doesn't matter which park you're going to, whether it's ocean park, et cetera. Like that's been huge for us to be part of something like that. And then we also started participating on the Park Passport app a
Mm.
couple of years ago. And it's a free download app for anyone, but we're part of the conversation of all parks. So you can go in and see what parks are local to you. And again, that's blue parks or green parks, right?
And I have
Forest
that
Service.
app on my phone, by
And
the
you
way.
have that. Yeah. So
So
state
good.
parks, county parks, like it's a really cool opportunity because we're in part of the conversation. We're
Yeah.
being relevant for people getting outside. And we've tried really hard to also produce web content that is very public friendly and not governmenty as much
Yeah.
as possible. Yeah.
Your website, by the way, is just phenomenal. All through it is just information. I mean, just the visualization, the marine life is just like, wow,
Yeah.
done a great job there.
Thank you. I can't take credit for that one. That's my team, but we do work together. Like what shots, what photographs, what stories make sense to promote and focus on.
Okay.
Thank you.
And where does the activities to bring people out, but also not only to have fun, but also to help them understand the protective nature, the stewardship, how does that also play into being a part of these activities to help get people aware of not only can we have fun out here, but we also need to help protect this as well, this great resource?
So I will tell you, it is definitely trickier for National Marine Sanctuaries than most. We manage the water. So we don't manage when people actually put their boat in the water or they step on the shoreline and that type of thing. So working with communities and the business operators that are in those communities has definitely been a successful opportunity. We have Blue Star operators in Florida Keys National Marine Sanctuary that diving, snorkeling, fishing, when their clients come on board, they talk to them on our behalf of like, you're in a national marine sanctuary. This is what it means. This is how we can protect it. This is how we cannot damage it. Like we don't want to jump out of our boat right onto the coral reefs, as an example. In some cases, we have, like I said, we really worked hard on our website and our social media platforms and trying to increase our audiences about our messaging. So we pulled together wildlife viewing messaging, very basic English and Spanish, really worked hard on our recreational fishing messaging, whether you're catching for food or you're catching and releasing. We've worked closely with NOAA Fisheries, which is another part of NOAA, to make sure that we're going out there and messaging correctly and the legal restrictions with that. But also, like I said, social media, we have Ocean Guardian School. So we try in different ways because it's a bit tricky for us to have direct contact with the people coming into the water. There's no fence, there's no gate, there's no fee. There's limited opportunities for us to connect with people that are going into the water unless they are looking for that conversation, like going to our visitor centers, going to our website, etc.
Okay, very good. Now, where have been some of the experiences that you've had while you have been a part of the National Marine Sanctuaries that you've like, oh wow, I get to do this?
Ooh. You and I were talking earlier about Thunder Bay National Marine Sanctuary. I will tell you, it's interesting. I mentioned, like, I'm a bird biologist. That's my background training, coastal areas, oceans, salt marshes. And I had an opportunity to go to Thunder Bay National Marine Sanctuary a couple of years ago to work with another organization on a film that they were doing for us. And I'm not big onto shipwrecks. And I will tell you, it blew me away. The crystal clear waters of, Lake Huron and the shipwrecks and how shallow most of them are. You can see them by a glass bottom boat, which is what I was able to go on, or a stand-up paddleboard or a kayak even. I mean, you can go diving and snorkeling, but if you don't have that, you can see them. And then they have a fantastic visitor center. And just seeing all of that, for me, like, I have changed my view on shipwrecks. So to me, that's an aha, like we do this really well. I mean, not to pat myself on the back because I didn't do it, but sanctuaries tell stories and provide the opportunities really, really well.
You know what?
That's, I mean,
I what I really love about this story is, and I've shared this with others, is my brother-in-law's family is from Alpena, which is where the sanctuary is.
Right.
One, the impact on the community, because Alpena was very much an industrial town. And I know, and it brought up this kind of question in my mind is, how did they feel about this National Marine Sanctuary being established in their literal backyard? And now it's just like, wow, this is a great tourist attraction.
It really is. It's definitely one of our many, many success stories. But the video, it was with the National Marine Manufacturers Association, and they interviewed, it was for their audience, so the boating audience, about like undiscovered places to boat. But they interviewed the tourism folks from Alpena. It was, I mean, for me, the whole trip was fantastic. And the being in the town of Alpena, but knowing exactly what you just said, like knowing that the sanctuary, the creation of the sanctuary and the Maritime Heritage Center, like I said about before, that was a huge thing for the community. And that's really the focus of a lot of what we do is community engagement, right? Yes, it's resource protection, but it's alongside and connection and collaboration with community engagement.
See, and that's the piece that I find, for me personally, I find fascinating is you have the mission, the Marine Sanctuaries has the mission, and now there's this community that can also benefit from a successful mission. And that conversation that takes place, I mean, that's when things are working, I think, government-wise. So as I was going through your background, I remembered that you have been very much interested in birding. And I know even in dry Nevada here, there are bird migration highways.
Yep.
And so I thought that was very interesting as I was reading more about your background, and I did never even thought about even out in the ocean in the sanctuaries, there are migration paths. So this has to be fascinating for you, I would imagine.
It was, it's funny you say that. I'm laughing because I'm kind of known as the bird nerd within the headquarters staff for sure. So
Mhm.
within my first 2 years, we created a bird story map
Yeah.
and we did an overlay of the bird migration patterns in the United States and the sanctuaries. And so if you're not familiar with bird migration patterns, there's the along the Atlantic flyway and the Pacific flyway. So along the Atlantic coast and Pacific coast. Well, we have sanctuaries in both areas. And then you actually have the middle of the country. So you have birds that are flying from Mexico across to Texas and then above. So we're not just talking like ducks and shorebirds or pelicans. We're talking also like land birds. Like there's a picture of a scarlet tanager in the middle that landed on a boat in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico that happens to be in Flower Garden Banks National Sanctuary. That's a land bird. And in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico, because it's Flower Garden Banks, is also part of the migration pattern. But why would you think about this forest bird in the middle of the ocean? But that's like one of my favorite pictures. You can't tell. But yeah, I mean, we sanctuary support not just whales, right? Not just sharks, definitely not in the Great Lakes, but birds, lots of birds. And if
I
that
love it.
particular area was developed, you probably wouldn't get the same bird migration patterns.
Right. I don't know if I share this with John or Vernon, but I'll share it with you, Grace. I'm a very opportunistic podcaster. If I love having photos on our website because we not only have the embed of the episode, but little background notes about our interview but
Okay.
photos. I would love that photo that you've just
Okay.
described, if it's possible.
I'll
I don't
find
want to
it.
don't want to put you on
Oh
the
yeah.
spot,
Oh
but
no. It's
I
all public domain, so it's good.
I love it. I just think that I could see just going out during the bird migration season and just going out with my camera, my long lens, and just as my friend Bridget had mentioned earlier, and I shared her name earlier, she's the bird diva, and she calls it slow birding. Just you go out there. It's not like, oh, look at that, look at that. You're just sitting there, you're waiting, and then they kind of birds kind of come to you.
It's oh, you hope so anyhow.
You hope so.
But I think I might have mentioned, I can't remember. We every year we have an annual photo contest
Oh wow.
called your Get in Your Sanctuary photo contest, and it runs from Memorial Day to Labor Day. We have 4 categories. One of them is sanctuaries at home. So that means anybody throughout the world can enter what a national marine sanctuary means to them in their local area. So last year we had photos, I think, as far as from like India.
Really?
But there's a recreation section, there's a art category, and peoples and places. I can't remember all the categories, but those 2. So there might be photos you want to enter.
There you
So
go. Well, I will set I do a lot of Milky Way photography, but then when it's not, you only get the dark sky a couple days out of the month. But I just
yep.
think I just love going out and just watching the birds. I think it's just a fun. It's fun, and so that
And
plus
that's how
whales.
yeah, that's how I started. I started with my grandfather would have a bird feeder, and that's what was our morning breakfast routine. And I never thought I wanted to be a bird biologist. It just kind of happened.
Yeah. Do you ever have an opportunity to chat with students and schools about your work, what you do, or perhaps the mission of the sanctuaries, and to help? I mean, because after you, after me, we have to have people that are going to follow us and continue that mission. And what impact are you having, or your team having, in getting these young kids interested in the opportunities?
Yeah. Well, I have 2 13-year-old daughters that would be mortified if I was in their school, but most people know around here, locally to Calvert County, Maryland. I do that. I have a lot of folks that say, "Hey, my daughter, son, etc., is really interested in science. Can you come talk to them individually?"
Mhm.
I generally have somewhere between 2 to 10 interns, volunteers, depending on where they're coming from on an annual basis. And I do try to make sure we have time to talk about like, this is really important. Like they might not know exactly science. They just know they want to be involved in something. But also like via LinkedIn, people have contacted me like just for like informational interviews. I make sure with both my undergraduate college at SUNY Oswego, and then Trent University, my graduate school, I've done a couple of programs just like that because I don't think there's just one way to get X, Y, and Z, especially not for me in NOAA. My path is not the same as many of our colleagues, and that's okay. I think I feel really strongly about having different opportunities. I mean, I did a lot of customer service type jobs. I worked at REI, I worked at a sandwich shop, and that's helped tremendously with
Sure.
every aspect of what I do.
Very good. By the way, I live right above an REI. How cool is that?
I will tell you, I didn't make a lot of money because I kept spending it a whole lot, but that's okay. But customer service though, right? And it's important for what we do. And I think it's a lost art in a lot of cases.
Very much, very much. So the 50th anniversary, you're out there, you're having conversations. I mean, when you presented to the OWAA, you shared about that, but what does the 50th anniversary mean for you, for your team and the work that you're doing? How is that playing out for you?
Yeah, it provides a great opportunity, like a different platform to just really showcase and catalyze a lot of the work that we've been doing for years, trying to reach a different audience at a different level. Not that we want to take away from our existing audience, but how do you expand that? Anniversaries are just that thing to celebrate. And so what we did is that we actually, our campaign really is called Enjoy Spectacular. And then we had several mini campaigns. And right now we're in that Enjoy Spectacular phase. So connecting people to the water, connecting people to our stories through activities like active participation, and especially coming out of all the different COVID years for the last couple of years, it's a great time to celebrate in so many ways. So the Get in Your Sanctuary celebration used to be either one weekend or one day or 1 week. This year, it's 3 months, July, August, September, focusing on different opportunities, whether it's stewardship or our cultural heritage or Indigenous conversations. It's just really ramping it up in a bigger way than we've ever done collectively as a system, but also working with our National Marine Sanctuary Foundation and other organizations, National Park Trust, et cetera, to help us celebrate the 50 years of ocean conservation.
Okay.
It's a great opportunity.
Oh, most definitely. And how does the foundation interact with you and the work that you're doing and your team is doing?
It varies from site to site and conversation to conversation. So I will say that. Actually, when I first started, I was a foundation employee.
Okay.
That being said, our missions are parallel missions. So trying to get together funds for a particular site, for a particular project, they don't just do the fundraising part, that's a piece of it, but they also do the logistic capacity, or they build upon some of our existing programs. So I'll take you back to Florida Keys. We have our Blue Star operators I mentioned earlier. They have provided another opportunity called Gold Clean Seas, where because they're Blue Star operators, they may be able to get other additional funding to help with marine debris removal, like big pieces of junk, garbage, old boats, et cetera, that are in the waters of Florida Keys National Marine Sanctuaries. So they help us provide different opportunities in ways that we just don't have the capacity or the ability to do. So lots of other conversations as well, but they have different audiences and they are able to they're more nimble than we can be because we're the government and they're not.
I get it. Totally get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So as you kind of look back at your career, the trajectory you've taken, anything you would share with your younger self, knowing what you know now?
As much as I loved my time at Oswego, my undergraduate degree, I wish I would have been more thoughtful about the different opportunities I had. I think about it now, and there was like an ecology, all these types of things, and ecology center. And I just like, oh yeah, college, blah, blah, blah. Like probably most people did. Other than that, I'm glad I went back to graduate school. I went back I was 30 years old by the time I got back. Maybe I should have done that earlier, but then I would have missed out on the experiences. So I'm sure there's something, but I really did try a lot of different things along the way. And
I believe it or not, Grace, I get that because I can empathize with a lot of what you just shared as well. Before we head out, there's 2 segments we have in the show. One of them is the aha moment. And this is where you get to look back and more than just would you share anything different to your younger self, but really the impact of what you're doing, what your team is doing, perhaps what the sanctuary is doing. And it's like, wow, we get to do this. And what would that aha moment be? This is when the tough questions come in. It's
It
always
is a
at the
tough
end.
question. Yeah. I think it's actually, this is going to be more of the, I want to do this and we
Okay.
can do this, but how do we get there?
Okay.
The more, so I've started working with having some conversations about communities, and I've talked about how important community engagement is. I think we're ready for the next level of like, how do we really work more closely with communities together and collaboratively? The conversations are there, but how do we get there?
Right.
How can they be ambassadors for us and vice versa? How can we come to a mutually beneficial, like, yes, this sanctuary is sacred to some degree. I don't want to put those words in it, but it's a special place. Again, responsible recreation,
Sure.
responsible uses, sustainable tourism, but how can we do this collectively together so that we're benefiting the community, and then the community is also helping us with our mission or a collective mission, not even our mission, it's our collective mission. I think that's the aha, like, okay, this is the focus for me for the next couple of years. It's not just getting the word out about national marine sanctuaries in like places like Illinois or Indiana where there is no ocean, but it's also really like, okay, let's focus more on the communities and the conversations with it, so that we're not going in and saying, you must do this. It's like, how can we do this together? So that's my, sorry, little switch on the aha, but that's where I feel pretty strong
That's
about.
okay. It's you get I get to tee it up and you get to swing.
You
So
did. You teed it up.
it dawns on me what I love about, well, especially Thunder Bay. I know there's another sanctuary right up in northern Wisconsin. Maybe it's
Wisconsin, Shipwreck Coast.
Shipwreck Coast. Those locations, and even on the Pacific Coast, are opportunities for communities who perhaps may not have had access to get out and explore because maybe they don't have the funds, maybe they don't think their constituents are interested, but now you have a vehicle to work in the community to take them on a trip to visit the welcome center or the visitor
Mhm.
center for a day, go, yeah, and learn about why this is here, why it's important, because it's those individuals who are on that trip, they're the ones that are going to be following you and I. Yeah,
Right.
and so I
It's
love
an
that.
equitable experience conversation. So a lot of folks are really big on access, access, access. Our sanctuaries are free. You don't have to pay to get in them. But getting to the coast, whether it's a Great Lake or an ocean, is expensive.
Yeah,
And if you don't even know why you should go, why would you want to? And it's expensive and it takes time.
yeah,
And so for me, when I say working with the communities, and I should have stopped, explained it a bit more, it's not just the resource, it's working with the communities so that we can collectively provide more equitable experiences.
yeah,
So, like you're saying, like getting folks, whether it's in the visitor center, whether it's working on a citizen science type project, or it's actually connecting them to the water through a whole bunch of different activities.
yeah,
How do we do that collectively?
sure.
So,
And I'm thinking the idea of donating, whether it's donating $1 or donating time. If I am in a dense urban area and I have never really spent much time out of it, I'm not going to make that donation of $1 or time. But if I can educate inside the community why it's important and to provide that access somehow, maybe through some other types of funding or donations, and get people to make that visit, now I'm creating a system of people of creating awareness for individuals, for communities. Say, yeah, we do need to support that. We should try to visit it. So that's how my head works. But it's just me.
that's good. But the other thing is though, are activities and things that you can do at home.
Yeah,
So yes, I agree. Like, yes, donation of time, services, etc. But also
yeah,
thinking back on like the basic reduce, reuse, recycle. All of those things really matter, especially in water systems like Great Lakes and ocean. Reducing your footprint, reducing the amount of plastics,
Yeah.
Do we need all the things that we have?
Something just dawned on me. I mean, this is like me reaching way back in the vault. I mean, this was way back
Okay,
there.
I'm ready.
I worked for a company many years ago that did a lot of the technology for the original International Space Station, Skylab. That's what it was Skylab. And they, over the course of a couple of weeks, we sponsored kids to come into a venue where we had the satellite link. So the scientists who are up in Skylab are talking to the students. And and with the advance of technology today, it seems like students anywhere can have access virtually or live virtual with the sanctuaries.
Ocean exploration. We do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
For some of our deep sea, I think the majority of our deep sea expeditions, we do that. We either connect with schools individually or we provide links. Some really cool things, especially like Monterey Bay. We discovered this, what we call it, octopus garden, and kids were on the line. I mean, not just kids, but like lots of folks were on the line. So see, you're not far off. We just getting the word out, right?
I
The
love it.
opportunities are there. It's us getting the word out and connecting
I love it.
to
I
the
love it.
larger audience.
Very good. Before we head out, any final insight to go? Again, that's another feature of ours, not to put you on the
Yeah.
spot, that you'd like to share with our audience?
I think I shared this with you as well. There's a poem that a friend of mine shared with me, and it really resonates with me because I feel like, especially as a federal employee, being authentic and present is just so important. Especially, I'm a very public facing, I talk to a lot of folks. That's my intention, right? So I'm going to just real quick. It's from our
Okay.
deepest fear, from Marianne Williamson.
Sure.
As we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people to do the same. As we're liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. And for me, that's that authentic, be present, be passionate, like with whatever. I'm very passionate about my job.
Yeah.
I think it's part of how we make a difference and how we make changes and we live it.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for the time and the opportunity.
Oh, I love it. And thank you for sharing that and gifting us with that insight and sharing Marianne Williamson's poem. And we'll put a link back to the fuller poem as well, because it resonates for me. I've had opportunities to hear parts of it. So it was refreshing to kind of see that on the page. Now, before we do head out, obviously lots of links to share, but any specific links, places you would like to recommend our listeners go to learn more about you and the National Marine Sanctuaries?
Thank you for asking. I highly suggest, do you want me to just
rattle them off? We're going to provide all the backlinks. We don't have to spell it all out.
That's okay. It's our visit page. So sanctuaries.noaa.gov, and NOAA is NOAA.
Yeah.
//visit.
Okay.
And there you can see all the things you can do within National Marine Sanctuaries, including responsible practices, wildlife viewing. We just created two new pages, a suite of pages on recreational fishing, but also on how you can individually, like in person, experience maritime heritage, stand up paddleboarding, and etc. So there's a ton of resources on there, and that will take you to many other sites as well. But that's kind of the one-stop shopping. And then the other one actually is Recreate Responsibly, the coalition I mentioned earlier. And it's great messaging, very, very engaging. And I'm proud to be part of that as well.
Very good. Well, we will put the backlinks to the sanctuaries.noaa.gov/visit, as well as to Recreate Responsibly. We'll verify the link with you, but we'll have that.
I can send that to you as well. Yeah,
we'll have that on the show notes. We're also going to provide the backlinks to like Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. You also shared a number of media references in the show notes. We're going to put those on there as well, because our goal with this podcast is to help celebrate with you the 50-year anniversary, and just want to make sure we get as many eyes and ears on this work as possible. So, Grace, it's been a pleasure to chat with you. I'm so glad you leaned in and said, yeah, I'll do this. And it's great to have you as a guest on the podcast.
Well, again, thank you so much. I'm sure I can feel my kids cringing as I'm on video, but that's okay.
Something that's part, No
That's part of
kids,
being a mom.
but that's part of your mom is what can I do
Totally.
today
Oh, I
to
believe
make
me.
my kids cringe?
Yep. I'm all for it.
I love it. I
Thank you
love
again.
it.
Have a great day.
You too. Listen, stay in the line and we're going to do a quick close. You and I can have a
Okay.
final chat. All right. All right, folks. We have just been chatting with Grace Bottitta-Williamson, National Recreation and Tourism Coordinator at NOAA's Office of National Marine Sanctuaries. And again, another fantastic contribution to this wonderful, wonderful service and resource that we have here in North America, the National Marine Sanctuaries, and really the unbelievable opportunities to get out, explore, recreate, contribute to being a good steward and taking care not only within our communities but also the greater environment. And these sanctuaries, they're here for us and just an opportunity to really understand the impact that they have on our lives, and really we need to understand the impact we're having on the sanctuaries. And it's through education, it's outreach, and as Grace said, also it's collaborating, it's partnerships, it's conversations, and really just hope that you are enjoying this episode. Like the other episodes, we have a couple more in the queue for you, but we really do appreciate Grace taking the time to chat with us today. And we will again provide the backlinks to the sanctuary's website as well as to sanctuaries.noaa.gov/visit. Lots of great resources on that page, by the way. You can spend some time there. Okay. Let me tell you. And I would encourage you to do that. And we're also going to provide the backlinks to Recreate Responsibly. And you're going to have the backlinks to all of the social sites like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and including the National Marine Sanctuary Foundation, as well as to the media links that Grace shared with us. Now, as for the Outdoor Adventure Series, please do visit us at outdooradventureseries.com. We're going to have a number of the photos that Grace has graciously offered to share with us so we can have those on the website. And you can also find us on LinkedIn and Facebook on the Outdoor Adventure Series pages. And you can listen to this episode wherever you get your podcasts from. So you have quite a selection there. So just search for Outdoor Adventure Series and you will find us. Okay, folks, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, go out there, have a phenomenal day. Take care of yourselves, your family. Go out there and make a difference. And we will see you on a future episode of the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast. Take care now.